Hey everybody out there in the YouTube universe, this is Mr. Movie, and in today's video we're going to be doing part one of a two-parter. It's not a movie review and it's not my typical top 5 lists where I do top 5 movies in my collection by an actor or a director. This is about an author, one of my favorites, Stephen King. Now, the first list is going to be top 5 movies in my collection adapted from Stephen King stories that are not horror. Now, a lot of people don't know that Stephen King has written a lot of novels and short stories that aren't horror. And there's some movies that you're going to be really surprised and not know that, wow, that's Stephen King. I had no idea. And be like, wow, he is an amazing writer, even when it's not horror. So the first list is going to be those, the ones that aren't horror. The second ones will be the horror movies that were adapted from things that he wrote. Stephen King is one of my favorite writers, whether it's horror or whether it's not. He's done a ton of novels and a ton of short stories. The guy is just prolific. And what's amazing about him is, you know, he gets the horror tag, which he deserves because he's done so much of it. But if you see like interviews with him on talk shows and stuff like that, the guy's a normal guy. I mean, he watches baseball, he drinks beer, he's just a normal guy. He just happens to be an amazing, prolific writer. And a lot of his stuff tends to be on the darker side. So on this thing, we're going to deal with stuff that's not horror. Doesn't mean it's not dark, but it's not horror. So to get started, we're going to start with number 5. And this movie I did a review on. So if you want to check that out, go on my channel and you'll see the full review for this movie. Not too many people know it, but Apt Pupil. It's Ian McKellen, who you know, and it's just Brad Renfro, you probably know from some movies. It's a really twisted movie because, you know, it's about a Nazi who escaped justice, a kid finding out about it, and him getting into the old man's life, and the old man being trapped by it so he doesn't get ratted out. But also then he starts, because he's slick, he's trying to trap the kid just in case he gets found out. And it's a really psychological movie. They play off each other, and the acting is phenomenal. And the story is a important one because, you know, people, especially with the internet and stuff like that, they tend to go down rabbit holes of dark things, and that can mess you up. You've seen people get radicalized online, and it's all from reading stuff and getting into certain ideologies, and that's part of what this deals with. And it's a really, really dark one, you know, what the Nazis did. And it's also good to see it because it shows you just how horrible the atrocities were, and, you know, that you probably shouldn't dive too deep into really dark stuff because it could mess up your mind like it did to the kid in this story. Really, really good movie. I suggest it highly, but it is intense and it deals with some dark subject matter, so viewer beware. The second, number 4 on the list, is another movie not too many people probably know about, The Dark Half. The reason I like this movie, and I like a lot of Stephen King movies where the story is about a writer because he's a writer. And what's really great about this movie, I should probably do a review about this movie, because what's really cool about it, it's about a writer who he's written these same type of stories for so long about this one character who's just a pretty bad guy, and people love it because, you know, people like violence and stuff like that. But in the story, it has a kind of supernatural twist to it, where when he gives up writing the character actually comes to life and comes after him and says, you know, he wants to be alive. And he's got to deal with this badass character that he wrote, pretty much stalking him and, you know, killing his agent, killing, people that he deals with in a business sense with the people who distribute his books, all that, going after people who were involved with, quote unquote, burying him because he wants to live. He wants to still have his stories be told. And he was basically, when he was born, there was a twin, but the twin wasn't fully developed. So that part of him is what he wrote. So that's what comes to life. And it's a really crazy story. It's got a lot of action in it, but it's really another psychological thing where when he writes, he drinks. He doesn't drink when he's not writing. He's kind of mean and abusive when he writes. And his wife is like, I hate when you write, but it's how you make money. And that character manifests itself in the books, and then that character actually comes alive when he tries to write something else and bury the character. And it's just him going after him and him having to fight him off, and it's a pretty crazy movie. Coming in number 4, The Dark Half. Really like it. Number 3 is a movie that I guarantee 99% of you don't know is a Stephen King story, The Running Man. Arnold, greatest action hero in the history of movies, bar none. This is a crazy story. It takes place in the future, but like a lot of movies made in the 60s, 70s, 80s say they're about the future. This time has already passed. So it's always weird to see that, we're past that and we don't have any of this. And it's not anything like what you see in the future stories in movies, what they thought the future would be like. But Arnold is amazing, of course. And the story is basically, he was a cop, but they had like militarized cops, and something went bad. They set him up, and they ended locking him up, and then he escapes with a couple of guys, and they realize that the populace is being fed lies through the one TV station that's allowed, and they're hooked in with the government. And a lot of conspiracy theory people would love this kind of thing because they think it's actually happening now, but it's not. What it is that they're controlling everything, and they have this one satellite that beams all the network stuff out to the people, and they're not allowed to listen to music and have certain clothes and things like that. They're controlled, and he takes it upon himself to rebel against that and break into the studio where the signal's being sent out, and just cut it off and free the people's minds and free them of this oppression. But how he does it is when he escapes from prison, they finally catch him. They put him in this game show. Richard Dawson is the game show host, and they put him through these different sections of the game area that he has to get through and fight different characters who are like they call them stalkers. They send them out. Each one has a special thing. One guy has a chainsaw. One guy has a crazy car. The other guy shoots fire. One guy's an ice hockey guy with exploding pucks. It's just madness. But Arnold's a badass, so he takes them all down. Eventually gets to the main guy, who's Richard Dawson, and they get the signal off, and he shows the people the truth, that he was set up, that all of this is nonsense, that you're being controlled. It's just an action-packed, crazy 80s badass Arnold flick, and it was written by Stephen King. It's just like how much great things can you pump into one story, one movie? Classic Arnie movie. Coming in number 3, The Running Man. Number 2 is a feel-good kind of thing, but it is and it isn't. When you watch it as a kid, it's one thing. When you watch it as an adult, it's another thing. You get the kid's perspective when you watch it as a kid. When you're an adult, you get the adult's perspective, who's telling the story of when he was a kid, and that's Stand By Me. Great young actors in this movie who became, bigger names later on. And, what I really love about it is you could watch it a lot of times, and it's reminiscent of your childhood, because it's one guy reminiscent about his childhood. And one of the greatest lines in there is, "I will never have friends as good as the friends I had when I was 12. Luckily for me, I still have those friends. And, and it's so true. You'll never have better friends than you did when you were a kid. And it's just a really, really good movie. It's a great story. A lot of actors that in it. And it's just the way it's told is great. It's told like by the author, another author who's telling us this writing a book about his childhood, and he tells us kind of one story about him and his 3 friends going to find a dead body that was the kid was reported missing, and they overheard where it was, and it's basically their journey to go see this, and they reflect upon life, and all these different things that kids normally don't. But they're about to graduate from like 8th grade, and they think they're going to be split up, and each kid has his own issues, and it just it's a feel good friendship movie, and it's just a really great story, and turned into a really great movie. If you haven't seen Stand By Me, you really should watch it. And if you have kids that are about that age, I would say show this to them, and let them know they should appreciate their friends that they have now at this age. That's number 2, Stand By Me. Coming in at number 1, one of the greatest movies ever made, The Shawshank Redemption. This movie is nearly perfect. Has everything you could possibly want. Just told from the perspective of one of the prisoners, and but not the main prisoner. And the actors are tremendous. It's just it's like I said, it's almost a perfect movie. You have a great narrative, great characters. You get the character development of them in jail because they're there for so long. So you see how they progress, and what they think, and what they go through being locked up, and the friendships and bonds that are made. And then the abusive warden, he gets it in the end, and you really just you love it because he's such a jerk to everybody that's in the prison. And the guards are really, most of them are jerks too, and they get it in the end because they were all involved in this corruption. And the main character, they involve him, and he flips it on them. And since they abused him and everybody else being in prison, the ultimate revenge is putting them in prison. And then there's an escape that it takes years and years for him to do this escape. He finally gets out. It's like and he gets a bunch of money. He gets to take off to Mexico, and he says he leaves a note for his friend when he gets out to come meet him up with him. And it's just a great story, great acting. Timothy Robbins, Morgan Freeman, they are tremendous together. And it's just one of the best movies ever made, and it's a great story written by Stephen King, as are all of these. So number 1, Shawshank Redemption. I don't think you can argue with it. That being said, if you like this and my other content and dig my channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can get part 2 of this and all the other movie reviews and top 5 lists about movies in my collection that I do. And give it a like if you like the content, and share it with all your other crazy movie loving friends if they dig it, if they like Stephen King as an author. If you have a different list, throw them in the comments. You have different ones I didn't say, same thing. And I hope you enjoyed it. And this is Mr. Movie signing off, and I'll see you again next time at the Flicks.